Thank you for keeping it right here on Sunrise at Sea. Now, I'm sure you're wondering why I have a smile from ear to ear, because this morning, joining me on our views panel, I have to my far left, I have Sarah, I have Sandra, and I have Kira. However, today is quite different because, as you can see, I'm dressed in the KCCA FC jersey. However, I'm going to ask Kira who she represents this morning because I love her whole outfit. I want to understand, what is it called? Where can I wear it? Am I also allowed to wear something like this? So what is the name of the outfit?
It's an abaya. It's
abaya.
Abaya, yes. It's a Muslim outfit.
Okay.
But you can wear it as well if you want.
Interesting. So
yes.
Today you represent the Muslims.
Yeah, I'm representing.
Today I represent the KCCA fans. Sandra, who are you representing this morning?
The Friday party goers.
I thought you were going to say I represent the marrieds. Since we're actually talking about marriage this morning. However, today on our views, we're going to be looking at marriage in a sense that, I mean, many of us dream to get married. However, when things go south, we tend to get divorced. Now, this morning, we're going to be talking about divorce. If you're watching us this morning, would you date a man who has gone through divorce, or would you date a woman who has walked down the aisle, or even vice versa? And that is the question we're going to be weighing in. If you'd like to be a part of that conversation, all you need to do is go to our social media account, that is at CTV Uganda, hashtag CTV Sunrise. Leave your comment down below, and we shall be able to weigh in. Now, just to give you a brief, when it comes to the Divorce Act, of course, that is in relation to Uganda. It says a husband or wife may apply by petition to the court for judicial separation on ground of cruelty, adultery, or dissertation without reasonable excuse for 2 years or upwards. And as of today, data shows that in Uganda, 370 times a year, 7% of the adult Ugandans encounter divorce or separation. Can you imagine? 370,000. Well, ladies, I would like to pose this to you as we start off the conversation. Would you accept to date a man that has already walked down the aisle?
Meaning a married man?
Yes.
Is he still married?
No, he's divorced.
Okay, so a divorced man.
A divorcee.
A divorcee, legally divorced?
Is he legally divorced or he's not?
Or it's
yes,
just...
the whole context is, would you marry a man who has walked down the aisle? Why I'm saying walk down the aisle, because walking down the aisle is a big deal. So would you marry someone who has already walked down the aisle, and yes, they have been legally divorced?
No, I wouldn't mind dating somebody who has been legally divorced before. There's nothing wrong with dating divorcees, because people make mistakes. You find somebody who you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and relationships don't work out sometimes, and it's okay. And I think I would applaud a person who chose to walk out, to leave, not walk out, to leave a marriage that they felt was not working for them. So absolutely nothing wrong with that, in my perspective. Although there is a lot of stigma around people who are divorcees, and a lot of, especially towards women, because they're like, you were rejected, your husband left you, you're a divorcee. It's, a lot of women would rather be widows than be a divorcee. I know someone, I personally know someone who is in a horrible marriage, but I kept on asking, like, but why are you putting up with this? Why are you putting up with that? She's like, what will people say if I left my marriage? I'm like, are you crazy? Are you mad?
Very many people actually are scared of divorce because of what society is going to think or say about them, and that's why people put up with all kinds of wars in marriage. However, to answer your question, I wouldn't mind marrying someone who's been divorced, but I would have to find out how many times have you been divorced. That's also important, There's some people being divorced, 3 times, 10 times. Okay, not 10 times, maybe 3 times.
They're there.
They're there, yeah.
And if you've been divorced for 10 times, no, that's a no-no for me. If maybe you've been divorced, yeah, it's a red flag. There is a problem with you. Yes, there is a problem with you if everyone keeps leaving you. Yeah.
Okay, how about you, Sandra?
I think there's no problem with it, because if something doesn't work out, then you shouldn't be able to stay in that marriage just because of what people will say. And I think this is very true, especially for women. They worry what people would say. But I mean, it's your life. It's not a dress rehearsal, you know what I mean? You don't get a do-over. So if you're not happy somewhere, I think it's
Legal.
okay to get divorced. And this is like a catch-22, especially if you're married in church. They say that the church does not
Accept
divorce. But like, if you're in an abusive relationship, a marriage, are you going to stay there until you die? Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think there's any problem with being a divorced woman or being a divorced man. I see absolutely no problem with that. It's your...
Wouldn't you say that there's some things you need to put into consideration before probably dating a man or a woman who has walked down the aisle? I, for one, if I met someone and I know that you've been married before, I may maybe want to know what led to the divorce. You might be a wife beater. You might, you know, have characteristics. I need to understand, okay, what happened? What led to the divorce? Am I able to put up with that? So maybe what are some of those things we need to put into consideration if you're advising someone that, yeah, it's okay to go ahead and date or even get married to someone that has been legally divorced?
I think what you should do is, especially when you have children, yeah, because when you have children and there's somebody else coming into the picture, that means you're going to have a blended family, yeah. So the other person who is going to be with your ex-husband or your ex-wife, like it or not, is going to be a part of your life somehow.
Very true.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're going to have a blended family. So I think you should sit down with the other woman, the one he divorced, and find out, maybe not in depth, but find out, is there so much animosity there? Why is there so much animosity there? Yeah, you should get to find out and have a candid conversation. Yeah.
Also, it's very important that you make sure that he's actually divorced. You know, like real divorced. Not that he's telling you that he's divorced, because you may find yourself in a situation where he claims to be divorced, but yet he's only actually separated or has not talked to his estranged wife for, you know, a number of years, and he has not finalized the process. I think it's very important to make sure you check that out. Number two, like Sandra has said, find out what was the reason. I think it's very important, because a lot of women will have the mentality, oh, that is in the past. It does not concern me. But no. You are not in the past, but the person may bring their old habits into a new relationship with you. So you need to find out. Also gauge the relationship he has, say, if he has children with his estranged wife. Gauge their relationship. Are they, you know, are they co-parenting well? Because I think we have seen scenarios where women get themselves into situations, and now you're fighting with the estranged wife or the first, you know, baby mama. I don't like to use that word, but the first mother of his children, and you're just making the whole situation even more toxic and even worse than it is.
But if we looked at the flip side of the coin, still looking at not legally divorced, what does this mean? This means that you're dating someone, but they have not legalized their divorce. They might be separated, but they're not legally divorced. And I have had so many case scenarios with my friends where married men promise them, I am going to get divorced. You're separated, but it has not yet been legalized. So would you still go ahead and marry or date someone who has not yet been legally divorced?
Absolutely not. That is inviting Kavuyo in your life. Kavuyo, you
really?
don't
What if the person actually loves you?
This is the thing. Do you know how messy divorces can be? Do you know how messy it can be, to the point that people would rather go as far as to permanently get rid of their spouse if they do not. Divorces are very messy, because when you're separating, you're now having to share property. You now have to figure out and debate on who gets to keep the kids. You know, there's shared custody. There is so much, and there's not only just the two people who are struggling in their marriage, who, you know, fighting each other, but it's also families are at war with each other. No. Even if it is love, honey, handle your business and then come for me after, because that is not my fight. That is not my fight. And for me, come to me with a clean slate, because I do not want to have to start inheriting your problems.
But then here's the thing, you said divorce text, and it's true. I mean, divorce procedures, especially in Uganda, of course we shall have a guest to go through those for us. It takes a bit of a process. So what if you meet this man along the way, he loves you, he tells you, I'm actually in the process of getting divorced. You still wouldn't date them completely?
I will wait for your process to end again.
I
will wait for your process to end. If you love me and we love each other, then what is the rush? rush. Let us wait for the process to end, because when you continue to get yourself involved with this person, as the days go by, you're getting deeper and deeper, you know, connected with this person. Now, what if you have children with this person, and now your children are in the middle of all this chaos and nonsense? You don't need that. And many times, sometimes the estranged partner can come after you.
That's very true.
Very true.
So do you want to risk your, it doesn't, I'm not saying that all divorces are, you know, volatile and there's a lot of crisis and cavuyo happening. But for the ones that are, which is the case most of the time, do you really want to risk it because of love? You'll find someone else.
I agree. I totally agree with Sarah. I was in a situation like that, like 12, 13 years ago, and I was dating this guy. He was separated from his wife, so the wife lived away abroad and he lived here, and we dated for 2 years, and he said they were going to get a divorce. I mean, they were already separated for like, at the 11th hour, he decided to work things out with his wife. Now, where does that leave me?
Thank you.
Nowhere. I had invested in that relationship. I was devastated. I was, and I had to move on. Well, I moved on, everything, whatever. Years down the line, he reaches out to me. It's like, guess what? I got a divorce. And I'm like, guess what? I got married. Like, I moved on. I wasn't there waiting.
Yeah.
So don't waste your time. Let him finish his business. I'm with Sarah and come to you. You're going to invest in this man. You're just going to get your heart broken. So don't go that way.
Very true.
But looking at, yes, Kira, before.
No, I'm just saying I do agree with the ladies.
Okay. So looking at some of the responses that came in when we did post this, and this one prefers to be anonymous. She said, I had an experience where I dated a divorced man. Believe me, the moment you learn that he's divorced and has kids, you must run as far as you can. Tragedy never stops. There's a time when the kid was staying with his ex-wife. She kept on sending photos and pictures and talking about old memories. So I think it gets complicated when there are children involved in the picture.
Yes.
And then either your ex-wife or your ex-husband has to constantly get in touch with them, and then it puts you at such loggerheads with him or her.
Very true.
Yeah, and also for me, it would just, for a lot of people, and also for me, it would just always leave a bit of, insecurity when...
It's not even a bit, it's a lot of insecurity.
Yes, the kids are involved, so
Yes.
he has to keep on, checking up, visiting. I'm like, but...
Interesting. Then we have another comment that came in and said, I am open to dating someone who is married in the past and has since divorced. However, existing marriage is a firm deal breaker.
An existing firm marriage.
Yeah.
Then another comment came in and said, I had an experience where I dated a divorced man. Believe me, the moment you learn that the man is divorced and has kids, you must run as fast. That one I did read it. And then in and of itself, being divorced is irrelevant to me. The details may matter. However, how does he talk about his ex? How does he explain why the marriage ended?
Exactly.
If it's all stories about how she's an evil harpy and has crushed his hopes and dreams, I will stay clear. Well, if it's thoughtful and sad, but acknowledging that things just didn't work out despite their best efforts, that's more promising. It's all about what it reveals about the way he sees the world. So you know how you can meet a man and he has divorced and then he's saying, oh my God, I was tortured. She used not to cook for me and stuff like that.
That's
isn't
a bad
that
man.
like a red flag or something?
It is a red flag.
It is a red flag.
Because then I would ask, like, what are some of those red flags that you need to look out for, especially when it comes to a divorcee? They might be playing the victim, yet they're actually the perpetrator.
But you see, this is the thing. Okay, we could say it is a red flag, but then again, I think we should take that with a grain of salt, because why should you speak well of somebody who did not treat you well? Why are you telling lies? Do you understand what I mean? Why would, say for instance, I was in a very bad relationship or bad marriage and my husband was abusive, he was this and that and that. Why would I speak praises of him? That is telling lies.
Yeah.
So if people want to act well, if people want to be talked about in a good way, they should have acted well. So I think maybe perhaps we should, you know,
I think to what
take it with
extent,
a bit of salt, you know, okay, listen, your partner was like this, partner was like that. And also when people keep on to, you know, complain about how they were treated, perhaps they're still dealing with it and they have not yet gotten over that trauma, and they need to actually go counseling or get therapy or deal with the fact that it did not help. Because, I mean, walking out of a marriage is not an easy thing. People you don't just leave. It takes a lot, you know, and it takes a lot to actually just leave that situation. Let us consider that, because you have told yourself, invested emotionally, especially psychologically, mentally, to spending your life and committing to spending your life with this person.
This man.
So it is not just something you walk away from, and it's not just something that you get over like that.
But also looking at what's happening on social media, of course, that is in relation to Pastor Bujingo and the lady that he wants to walk down the aisle with, and then we have a lawyer coming up to sue him. Then that brings in the aspect of illegally divorced, because there are people who have been, yes, divorced, but it is not official. So Sandra, would you still go ahead with this kind of relationship, or what's your take on it?
If I was the second woman, absolutely not. I would not, because this is a pastor. He got married in church, right? And the wife has refused to give him a divorce.
Is that in the aspect of religion in Christianity? Is that the context you're bringing it in?
Yes, I'm bringing it in that context that we don't recognize divorce. Yeah, it's not recognized. So if I feel, and I feel the way that, like what you were saying, how did that marriage end? Yeah, she has pent up issues, and maybe she's feeling that she could actually work things out with her husband. So why sign the divorce papers and let him go to someone else? Like, you have to try to see if you can salvage in the Christian religious setting. It's not just, hey, excuse me, today we want to get divorced. Like, oh, okay, just sign here, 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 and go. No, it's not like that. You have to go through marital counseling when you're getting married. You have to understand the magnitude of the decision that you're going to take. Yeah, so it just doesn't get dissolved like poof. And so I understand where she's coming from. And if I was the other woman, I would not throw myself in that mix.
I was actually reading on under the law of the Republic of Uganda, under customary marriage, it says between parties to be registered, of course, with the Uganda Registration Service Bureau. However, if a couple doesn't register, then the union remains legally binding and acceptable. A certificate of customary marriage will be issued on payment of a fee. So that actually explains what you were talking about. However, Sarah, you seem to have something you want to add on.
Don't do it. Leave him alone, or leave her alone. If they're not legally divorced, leave them alone. You don't need that caviar in your life. And I call it caviar because it's just a mess. And especially if he's at war with the estranged wife, at war with his family, why do you want to bring yourself into such a toxic situation? Like, if you truly love each other, then what is the rush? Wait it out. You know, be supportive, be there. Wait it out, because marriage.
How long in this case goes?
Listen, even if it is 10 years, and you really want to wait for each other, wait it. No, seriously. Where are you running to? Exactly. What are you running to?
In this case, the wife actually refused. You know, she doesn't want to sign the divorce papers. So how long are you going to wait for when you know the other party is not willing to let go of this other person?
This is the thing. But it is the other one wants this one. No?
Yes.
Okay. The other one, he does not want the other one, right? So you give him time to finish his business with the other one before you put yourself in that situation.
Well,
if it is too much, find another one.
Divorcee is not for. The conversation can go on and on and on with Sarah and Sandra and Kira. However, that wraps up our views part 1. Up next, Sarah will be coming back, and we're going to be bringing in a lawyer to weigh in on some of these issues. And you do not want to miss that particular segment, so don't blink.
Welcome back from that short break, and this is still Sunrise at Sea right here at CTV, and we're still in our views segment today, and now we are joined by counsel Daniel Angwalia from Daniel Angwalia Advocates, and he is a High Court and Court of Appeal and Supreme Court of Uganda counsel. He specializes in divorce law and handles several divorce cases. Good morning, counsel. Welcome.
Thank you. Good
Thank you for
morning.
honoring
Yes.
our invitation.
You're welcome.
So, Council, today our conversation is centered around marriage and divorce laws in Uganda. And what inspired this conversation is the controversial relationship between Pastor Bujingo and his lady, who is Susan, who he, recently, actually earlier this week on Tuesday, did an introduction ceremony with. So, the laws of the land do say that customary marriage, church marriages, civil marriages are all legal by law. But what is really confusing people, and what people need to know, and what I also really want to know, is that if the customary marriages are legal, why do the church marriages dismiss any other type of marriage? Because he's still legally married to his estranged wife. So I was just wanted to give that as an example to focus our topic of discussion today.
Okay, thank you. I think first of all, you need to understand the meaning of marriage.
Yes.
It's very important. By simple definition, marriage is a contractual relationship between a man and a woman to live together as husband and wife. The laws of Uganda provide for different forms of marriage. That is the church marriage, the one you celebrated by a licensed church official, maybe a pastor, priest, whichever. Then we have the civil marriage, which is conducted before the register of marriages, or in this case could be the CAO of a given district. We have the customary marriage, we have the Hindu marriage, the Islamic marriage. All those marriages have different principles, legal principles, which guide them. So if you choose to go by civil marriage, then that be it. You have to abide by the rules which govern either church marriage or civil marriage. When you cross from civil to customary, then you are bound to have a problem.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So in the context of your question, the pastor you are referring to, I'm told, I've not seen the marriage certificate anyway, that at one point he contracted the church marriage, which is by its nature is monogamous. Monogamous in the sense that one wife,
One husband.
one husband. I said it before, I've not seen the marriage certificate.
Yes.
Assuming, indeed, he contracted a church marriage at one point, and the marriage is still subsisting, the mere fact that, well, it is in public knowledge that they are in court trying to go through the divorce.
Yes.
So there's an assumption that indeed there was a marriage. So as long as the marriage is still subsisting, as court has not pronounced itself that the civil marriage or church marriage that you contracted, one man, one woman, has come to an end, whatever you do by crossing to Islamic marriage, crossing to customary marriage, in my view, is a waste of time.
It's a waste of time. Are you sure?
Yeah, because
So say for instance, if I'm the second woman in this case, and we had children and have spent a substantial amount of time together, and say for instance, the husband in this case scenario passes away, I have no legal standing to claim anything as a second wife? No, but this is Dante. I'm asking. After you have taken me for a customary marriage, and say there was a first wife who was taken to church, say something happened to him, am I entitled to any inheritance as a wife? Am I noticed? Am I recognized? Thank you.
no, the most important thing is the question of whether you are a wife is very, very important.
Oh wow!
Doesn't matter how long you have been with the
Yes.
with the gentleman. You could be a girlfriend, concubine. Yes, the reality is that he's married. He has his legal wife. Okay. Now, when you bring the question of am I recognized, that also takes us to another big topic of distribution of matrimonial property.
Yes.
You may have 10 children. Whether you are recognized by who is another question. Yes, because there are rights which accrue to couples by virtue of being married. Okay. What we'll consider in such cases are the rights of the children, for example. The children, regardless of how they are conceived, they have their rights.
Yes.
They'll be entitled to benefit in the estate if their father passes on. Yeah, their rights is not compromised anyway. They're entitled to a share of the estate. For you, the girlfriend, if I may call it.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Put it in
It
box.
got the girlfriend.
I don't know how to classify you whether girlfriend or, because you are not a wife.
Wow.
Okay?
You're breaking relationships
not a
this
wife.
morning. You're not.
No, that's the law.
So,
That's the law.
counsel, so what are the proceedings of divorce? Because not a lot of people in Uganda actually take divorce quite seriously. They just separate and go their own ways, but never legally conclude it. Why is that so?
I think some could be out of ignorance. Yeah. Yes, could be out of ignorance and maybe the cost of the divorce. Yeah, because if you have contracted a civil marriage, it is only court that has powers to divorce. Because marriage is an activity conducted by the church on behalf of the state,
Yes.
on behalf of government. So it is only the state machineries through the court system that can separate the parties or conduct the divorce. The divorce can only be done through a court process, like if you have conducted civil marriage. So in that case, the reason why people don't look into it, as I said, could be out of ignorance. One, ignorance, and the second one could be the cost. Okay? The cost associated with the divorce process. When you go to court, you need a lawyer. And it's also a fact that lawyers are quite expensive.
That's
And
true.
it's world over.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question, Counsel. Like,
Yes.
if I'm married in church, and women out there, if he wants to marry, let him take you to church. Anyone he brings after that, as you had the counsel, you are a girlfriend, regardless. So always go there if that's what, if you want to be secure and everything, go there first. But I'm getting that if it's in a customary setting, customary marriage, since it's polygamous by nature, then you can introduce many people, right?
Yes, you can marry as many as you can.
Yeah.
Customary marriage. But if that is to be recognized, you shouldn't be married.
In church.
At the time you go for customary marriage,
Yes.
you should not be married in the first place.
Yeah.
If, for example, initially you contracted a civil marriage, if you decide to go for customary marriage, you must ensure that the civil marriage has gone through the divorce process, and you have the final divorce decree from court to confirm that yes, you are divorced. That way you can then proceed to contract a customary marriage or any other kind of marriage recognized by the laws of Uganda.
My other question is that why is it that church marriages reign over every other type of marriage in this country, and why is that so?
I wouldn't agree with you from the legal point of view. If you come to me with a married or related or divorce-related issue, my question will be whether you are married. Once you are married, in the back of my mind, I know, well, the laws of Uganda recognize all forms of marriages. But the reason why maybe there is more acceptance of the church marriage, one is there's a communal involvement. You want people to participate in your marriage, okay, to accept it. And two, Uganda is a religious country by average standard, so you want to get the blessings from church.
Yes.
Yeah, you also want people to know that you are married. And the other bit is that most ladies, even if you have gone through the customary marriage, some may not actually think that they are married. So no, he has not taken me to church, because sometimes they come and you ask, are you married? No, all we did was kushala. I think that is in Uganda. Okay, after that, did they take bride price and all that? Depending on the tribe of the tribe of the lady or the culture. You discover that this person is actually married, but thinks is not married, just because it is customary marriage.
Yes. And she has every right to be concerned.
Just for the reason that you are concerned, for the reason that customary marriage by its nature is polygamous.
Yes.
So, whereas today you may be the lady, tomorrow you can come up with another one. and next one, and add and add.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
then
Yeah.
I would wonder if I stayed at, let's say, my boyfriend's house for, let's say, 2 years, doesn't still make me his wife?
Even if you stay for 20 years. And even if you have 10 children
Shivan.
or 20, doesn't matter.
So it doesn't fall under customary, it doesn't fall under any sort of marriage, whether you have stayed with him even for 20 years, it doesn't make him your husband, it doesn't make you his wife.
Well, we have that
Because I was
mistake.
reading it in Parliament.
No,
Cohabiting.
it is not. It's not. You must go through the actual marriage rituals. If you want to go through the church marriage, you can only say you're married in church after you have gone to church and you have been, wedded by a church minister. If you are going through the customary marriage, you must actually perform the customs of the lady.
Yeah.
Because with the customary marriage is the customs of the lady which count.
Yes, yeah.
So just because you have stayed with someone for 10 years, you have 10 children, does not
doesn't-
make you
A wife.
a wife.
Oh my
And
God.
let's
And this,
talk-
So that is
yes.
something which is very, very important.
I'm curious about divorce, actually. It's, I've heard that if you want a divorce, yeah, they don't like issue you a divorce immediately. They actually have to take at least 2 years mediation, depending on your reasons for wanting a divorce. Is that correct?
Just like any other, marriage is a very serious undertaking.
Yeah.
Okay? You take many years courting, take many years organizing the process. It would be wrong to wake up one day and say, now, I want the divorce, and end there. What is misleading people is too much of the movies we watch. Sign divorce papers. I want to sign divorce papers. Someone comes to you and says, I want to sign divorce papers. Now, I am not interested in these properties. Divorce papers. No, we don't have anything like that. You must go through a formal process. First of all, you must have reasons for divorce.
And what are
what
the
if you don't
reasons?
love them
Yeah.
anymore?
What are the reasons for
Yeah,
divorce
that's a very good
accepted by
question.
court?
Yes, just because you are annoyed with your husband, didn't buy you a birthday present, does not make you say, now I want the divorce.
It depends.
It doesn't matter. You must have what is called legal grounds for
Yeah.
divorce. One is the adultery.
Okay.
With proof?
Do you have
Definitely,
to have
when you go out to
Just
go to
as
court,
insinuation.
You have to have
yeah,
proof.
when you eventually go to court, you have a burden of proof. You have to
Yes,
prove
yeah.
to court that yes, this man or this woman cheated on me with this, and sometimes you find that they have a child together. You don't need any other evidence to be able to prove that there was a sexual intercourse between these two people before a child was conceived. Adultery, that's one. Cruelty. Cruelty could be physical or emotional. Okay. And the third one is desertion, where, say, your husband just disappears one day, you don't know where he has gone, does not tell you where he is, no contact at all, for a period of 2 years. Then you are allowed to, you're allowed to go through, to apply to court for divorce on that ground. Okay. Now, you go to court, you must go through the court process. You file today. Court will not just assume that you are right. They will ask you to serve the other party with their court documents.
Now, how do you serve someone who has deserted you?
Now, there's another legal process. If the person has deserted you, you have no contact with him or her, then you go to court for permission to advertise the court summons in the newspaper. Okay? He's given 15 days to respond. If he or she does not respond, then you go back to court and say, well, I have no contact. I've tried to look for this person. Please hear me out alone. And then court will. It is also not obvious, just because the other party has not responded, then your case is okay. No, you must still prove that, yes, he committed adultery, or he deserted me, or he has been cruel. Yeah.
How about in the instance, can you have your marriage dissolved without the other party being present? Do they have to be there to sign as well?
Can't. No. As I said, if, for example, sometimes the person is actually available, but is not interested. Said, okay, we have seen it. We said, okay, I did not involve court when I was marrying you. If you want a divorce, sort yourself, but I'm not going to appear. Yes, so what you have to ensure that you show court that you have tried to serve him with the court papers, he has ignored, then court will allow to hear you out alone.
Okay.
Now in that process you have to prove that indeed you meet the end of the grounds for divorce.
All right.
Once you do that, court will proceed to grant the divorce.
What of in extreme cases whereby, talking of cruelty, yeah? And we have heard of women, or mostly women, who die at the hands of their husbands, yeah? In that case, what happens? Does court issue you an immediate divorce, or you still have to go through the process?
What do you mean when someone dies? Because if you're already dead,
No.
you can't go to
No,
court.
like if your life is in danger, yeah? There have been instances where women have faced extreme domestic violence. Can the court...
You know, you have to understand that court goes with the principle of fair hearing, okay? You may go to court and allege all those lies. It may be lies. Court has to give the other party a chance to defend him or herself.
Yes.
Okay.
And if he does not show up to defend himself, then you prove your case alone. And when court is satisfied with their ground for divorce, then they'll go ahead and grant it.
So, counsel, my last question to you is, you hinted on something about registration of marriages, and that is absolutely, I believe, very important. But in the cases of where some people get involved with, first of all, I would like to ask, does the URSB have these registered marriages out for public viewing? Say, for instance, if you want to investigate if the man who is talking to you and telling you sweet nothings is married, are you able to go and actually check and see if he's still married?
Yeah, you can't check if he has ever contracted a marriage and registered it with the URSB.
Yes.
Upon payment of such fees, to be around 30,000, 25. Don't have the exact figure, but you have to pay some money.
Okay.
Then they will conduct a search in their database and give you a written response. The challenge is, Uganda, we have similar names. You may go to check Kabugo Joseph, and we have 1,000 Kabugo Josephs in the database.
Yes.
So how are you going to be satisfied that there is Kabugo Joseph you are checking is the one?
And there's specifications in the certificate, like say date of birth, occupancy,
Picture.
residence. Are there pictures actually? That is very important. Are there pictures?
Yes, but if you have something to compare with, it's a different thing.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have some documents to compare with, maybe identification document,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, or maybe photos, and then you write to find out whether that person is married. But again, that is not enough, okay? The person may be married when it is not in the system.
Okay.
Because you see, we have different forms of marriages. For
Yeah.
example, with the customary marriage, ideally after going through the process at the lady's home, the marriage is supposed to be registered within 6 months, okay? However, non-registration does not invalidate the marriage.
This is very confusing.
So
Why is that so?
You go for customary marriage in some village where your lady comes from, and you're off. And then, ideally, the people are supposed to push for registration should be the parent of the girl,
yes.
because you're supposed to register at the sub-county
Yeah.
where the marriage was conducted. But there's a challenge usually, sometimes, people may not know, ignorance of the law. People may not know they need to register, and even when they know they need to register, they may say, if I register, if we relax, we shall never go to church. So the lady would relax even to push her parents to have the marriage registered. Okay? So for you have gone to Gulu, you stay in Kisoro, you have contracted the customary marriage in Gulu. Ideally, it's supposed to be registered at sub-county where the marriage was celebrated. But how are you going to move from Kisoro to ensure that is done, even when you know? So you're likely to rely on
The family that side.
family that side, yes. And the family that side may also relax and say, now if we give him some document, he may never take our daughter to church.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but as I said, even if you don't register it within a period of 6 months, the marriage itself is not invalidated. So the person remains married, customary marriage.
Okay.
Now, if you go to URSB to conduct a search, they'll tell you, according to our records, okay, so-and-so is not married. However, this does not mean that he did not contract
Yes.
marriage somewhere, like customary marriage. So it is not conclusive.
All right.
Yes, but if in that case, once you have that document, you are convinced that yes, now chances are high he has not contracted civil marriage. That is left with customary marriage. The question is, maybe if you have a reason to believe that he has ever contracted some marriage with someone, then you have to go extra mile
Or
to go to the
visiting
lady's village and find out if indeed yes, there was.
So, okay, as we wrap up, Council, any parting shots? Where can they find you if anybody needs any divorce advice or marriage advice? How can they find you?
Yes, just to start with the correction, the law firm is Angwalia Busiku
Angwalia.
and Company Advocates.
Yes.
Yes, we sit at BMK House, 4th floor, room 402. BMK is next to Hotel Africana.
Yes.
And indeed, you use the same entrance.
Yes.
To Hotel Africana.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Council, for
You're
gracing
welcome.
our set and joining us today on Sunrise at Sea. And there you had it. Marriage is a very, very serious thing. You don't just go in anyhow and just leave as you please. You need to, put a lot into consideration before you get yourself into a marriage, because getting out of it may be a very difficult thing. When they say until death does us apart, they literally mean that. So take caution. Well, that's all we had for you on this segment of Our Views. Keep watching Sunrise at Sea. Good morning. Well, I hope you had a great time with us right here on Sunrise at Sea. Keep watching CTV until tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Don't blink and keep on watching CTV, because coming after Sunrise at Sea is a movie, and then Team Cash will be coming in at 11 a.m. with the mid-morning party. You don't want to miss that. From me and the ladies right here at Sunrise at Sea, have a great day. Be blessed. Wear your mask. Social distance. Sanitize. Be careful, be vigilant. Until tomorrow, until next week, actually, Monday, until Monday, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.